Hey, welcome to another Mallee Sustainable Farming Lockdown Lowdown series that we're bringing to you this spring in lieu of being able to run some field days like we normally do. One of the major field days that we have been having each year is at the Southern Pulse Agronomy site near Orion. This year it's near Speed, and as always we have Jason Brand from AgVic, who is managing these sites, here to sort of take us through and show us how a few things are looking and what results we might find in later in the year. Now Jason, we're down here on the lentils on the flat this year, and obviously a big part of the Pulse program is looking at opportunities for pulses across all the trial sites in the Mallee. So I might hand over to you to show us how things are looking on the different soil types at this site.
Yeah, thanks Michael. So yeah, we're just sitting in one of the trials we've got here where we're really interested in how the new genotypes and also some breeding material grow on this flat ground here. So on the better ground you can see how fantastic the lentils are looking down here at this time of the year, against up on the sandhill, and we'll go for a walk up there in a few moments. And on the sandhill we've got a couple of comparisons where we looked at a ripped versus an unripped treatment, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other work that we've been doing with Michael over a number of years now. I thought we'd start just here because we're in a real classic position here. Just here on my left hand side we've got the classic Mallee PBA bolt. Everyone knows about it, good reliable variety, probably our best variety across a range of soil types in the Mallee, and has been so for a number of years. So consistent performer, just done really well. Over here we can now announce that we've got PBA Kelpie. So this is that new variety that we've been talking about for the last couple of years. It's available through SeedNet. So this is another IMI tolerant variety. So earlier maturing, IMI tolerant, adapted to a wide range of environments, tall and erect, and got good disease resistance profile. So we'll have better BGM resistance than Bolt. We're still learning a little bit more about its adaptability to a range of soil types, and that's the reason behind these sorts of trials. So we'll talk a little bit now about PBA Highland. So that's the other one that was released last year for production this year. So that one's available through PB Seeds, and again it's a well adapted Mallee type variety. It's probably what we'd term as the IMI Bolt. Hopefully it goes really well across a range of soil types. Earlier flowering and maturity, and again it's got a good range of disease resistance. There's a good comparison across three of the common varieties. In these trials we've also got your hallmarks, your jumbo 2s and those sorts of varieties, but we thought we'd just stop here and have a look at these. So we're over here now at the chickpea trial, and you can see the chickpeas are growing really well down here on the flat soil. We'll go up to the top afterwards and we'll be able to have a look at the comparison. One of the big things or big opportunities with chickpeas is that real gap between how they grow on a sand versus the flats. And in this trial, as against the lentils more so, we've got a whole range of breeding material which has got adaptation to or improved adaptation to the sandy soils, along with earlier flowering, earlier maturity. We're standing here or sitting here right between a couple of lines of interest. So over on this side here we've got the new breeding line which will be released this year. It's being tested as CISA 1521 and has shown reasonably good yields over a number of years. It's a new Desi line, doesn't have any major improvements in terms of ascochyta blight. So yeah, we'll just keep an eye on how that's looking. And over on the left hand side here we've got a new breeding line. Again, these are lines that we've just selected, working with Christy Hobson, the national chickpea breeder, and we're just really interested to see the relative performance across the two different soil types, and just seeing that opportunity to really improve and push performance up on towards the sandhills, make these crops a lot more reliable under those conditions. So we're over here now at the field piece and sitting between a couple of really contrasting lines, and it really demonstrates a bit of an example of where the breeding program's heading to and some of the stuff that we're really interested in assessing longer term. So on the left hand side here we have PBA Butler, which is the latest release from the field pea breeding program. It is a lot later flowering, easily demonstrable here, and does have extremely high yields in medium to higher rainfall zones, probably not quite as high yielding in the lower rainfall zones. Going forward, one of the exciting things has been this refocus on some of the more trailing types, the fully leaved types, like your PBA Percys that you had previously, the Dundales and such like in the past. And so we've just got a breeding line here, and we're really interested in this from the ground coverage perspective. A lot of these lines have got really good early vigour, able to get that ground cover going, protect your soils so they're not blowing them around all over the place. So, and a number of them have got really high yields. So we're pretty excited about the potential here. Obviously, it reintroduces some of the harvestability issues that we might have overcome with the semi-leafless standing types, but we certainly are hearing from industry there is some interest in this more trailing type going forward and the opportunities across a range of soil types. We've stepped over to the bean plots now, and obviously there's not a lot of beans growing around the mallee, but we have been pushing the boundaries a little bit, and I'm holding in front of me now one of the varieties, or one of the new lines that's been tested. It's really early flowering and it's already starting to set pods. But the big opportunities around beans are, and one of the exciting things is the nitrogen input that many growers have been talking about. They also tend to finish relatively early, so they tend to leave a little bit of water behind for the following crop. And obviously as we get this bigger biomass and also potentially to pod and flower earlier, there is that potential to start getting yields which are profitable in the mallee. We've seen this particular variety yielding 30-50% above a variety like PBA Samira in some of the tougher seasons up in our southern mallee site. Obviously here they can struggle at times, but this year you can see they're looking quite good at this point of time.
So Jason, we've been down on the flat, the heavier, better soil type. Obviously some really nice growth going on down there for the season. Now we're up on the top of the sand dune. These soil types are the bane of the mallee pulse growers' existence.
Yep.
What are some of the things that we're looking at from a pulse point of view up on these sands to try and lift the production on these soil types?
Yeah, so well, in this trial particularly, we're picking up on some of the work that's been done over a number of years now, looking at the deep ripping, and we're overlaying it obviously with a genotype response here. So we're really interested in how different varieties and genotypes of lentils perform under ripped versus unripped conditions. We'll start here with these two varieties here, and we've just got in front of us the bolt again that we looked at down the hill just a few moments ago, and you can see in a ripped plot this is what a bolt looks like. On the other side of me here, this is the 1721 or that PBA Kelpie in an unripped plot, so you can see much more stress through the plot. And there's another bolt plot just one further over to the left there, which looks pretty much the same as this, stressed. And in a few weeks time it's going to probably look a lot worse. Some other work that Michael's been involved with have demonstrated huge yield responses 100% more. Isn't that right, Michael?
Yeah, more than a tonne per hectare.
So this is just one of the steps in terms of the ripping. We've also on these sandhills, because as Michael indicated, this has just been the bane of the existence for pulses and lentils, and probably really held us back on a number of the pulse crops. We've got a number of trials around the herbicides, so herbicide tolerance is going to be a huge thing coming through, particularly if we can crack the Group C herbicide tolerance. Group B's been great, but also the Group I's, so your Lontrel type tolerances will be really great up on these sandhills. We then combine that with stubble retention practices, hopefully some improved nutrition. We've been doing some work with nutrition over a number of years, and working with the nodulation guys as well. So as a program, the Southern Pulse Agronomy program, we've been really focusing on bringing together adapted germplasm with some of the best agronomic practices, and combining it obviously with this deep ripping, because the deep ripping is going to be the biggest driver of all, I think, in all of this. And then we'll just be able to build on top of that with some of the other treatments like herbicides, nutrition, inoculation, etc. So we've just moved over to the chickpeas now, and the chickpeas have been one of the crops that really have demonstrated the benefits of deep ripping. So we're in early September here, and so you can see a slight difference. So over on my left hand side here we've got the unripped plot, one of the breeding lines, and then on my right hand side here we've got the ripped plot. So you can see the much more vigorous growth, but this is just going to continue to go. So you know, I look at this now, and if we didn't have much rain on this now, these guys are going to be almost dead probably within a month, whereas these guys have got a lot of potential. In trials from last year, Michael showed that as they got through into October, the differences just got bigger and bigger, and pretty much the guys where they hadn't been ripped almost yielded nothing, and these were yielding, you know, above a tonne a hectare in some places. So it's a really exciting difference we're seeing with chickpeas, that opportunity to send their roots deeper, extract more water from the profile. So we're still learning a lot more about chickpeas and their impact in the farming system, but they are certainly one of the crops that is a standout under the deep ripping system. So we're over with peas now, and we're just looking at a couple of the unripped plots. So this is traditionally what we would see in the mallee. So we've got more of a conventional variety, the line that we were talking about down on the flat. If you remember, you'll see, you know, it's already starting to run out of moisture. It's flowering, but probably not going to set too many pods. And over here we've got PBA Butler, and you wouldn't really be thinking that's going to yield too much this year. So what we're going to do now is we're going to step over to the ripped plots just to give you a comparison. So we've just moved over to the ripped plots here, and you can see where I am. I'm sort of starting to get down into the crops. I can almost hide down in the canopies a little bit. So you're sort of getting to the stage where you're not really seeing a lot of moisture stress down lower in the canopies, and you know, flowering away happily, new pods coming along. Pick up another 10-15 mil of rain on the weekend here, and these are going to fly away. So just really demonstrating the benefits of that deep rip, particularly on field peas again, in addition to all the other pulses. So sitting down here, these are almost the same height as what we see down there. You know, they're sort of that 1.5 to 2 foot tall, bulking out quite well. You know, maybe not quite the same level of growth, but certainly up near that level. So huge impact on peas. All right, finally down at the beans, our indicator crop for droughts and everything drying out. So on my left hand side here, we've got that same variety I was talking about down the hill. So that new breeding line adapted to drier zones. As you can see in unripped conditions, it's struggling a little bit. We can see the dry conditions kicking in, and yeah, you wouldn't expect too much yield off of this. In comparison, on this side we've got the deep rip. Obviously, you know, we're not seeing the huge growth that we see with some of the other crops, but you can see some massively improved potential. This particular plant I've got here has got a number of pods already forming on it. So it gives you some opportunity to grow beans up here, but they certainly still struggle a lot on these particular soils.